Yes, indeed. Let's stick with Everton, because this is a serious proposition in view of the fact that when they go to the PGMOL regards a decision that was made during the game, it never really comes to much. I'll tell you why, Simon. Everton have contacted the PGMOL for an explanation regards the Anthony Gordon penalty claim.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you and I both know that's probably going to go nowhere. I mean, where could it take them? Nowhere. The result stands. The decision will stand, I'm quite sure, and nothing will change. Is there any point at all to retrospective refereeing complaints from clubs? I just don't see it.
Because there's a demarcation a point about the official's performance. It is an identification of who's performing and who's not, and people having to be accountable for their performances and stood down or refocused on their responsibilities, or the upsizing of the regime that produces more competency and more consistency in refereeing decisions.
But the decision remains. The decision the referee made.
That's just
and the referee will stand by his decision.
That's a fact of life. The fact of life is you've got to weights and measures in there. It's called VAR. You can't have a weights and measures to the VAR. You can't have VAR being reviewed by someone else. Otherwise, you'll spend yourself in an endless cycle of disappearing down a rabbit hole of reviews. The bottom line is that nothing's perfect. There is human error involved in lots of things. The managers make more errors than you can shake a stick at. So it's not surprising every now and again that the referees make errors. It's entirely appropriate. There is some mechanism to air your grievances, and it's entirely appropriate that mechanism, if found to be validated, or in terms of the mechanism finds out that the allegation or the observation or the criticism or the complaint is upheld, that the referee involved has some sort of consequence. Well, now, that doesn't mean being stood down to the championship, by the way. It means that surely from criticism out comes a better dynamic of reviewing, evaluating, moving forward, ensuring that the quality gets better. But you can't seriously advocate for a referee to be reviewed by a VAR, for a VAR to be reviewed by a third set of eyes. We're getting into the territory of it going on and on and on and on. Well, mistakes are made, tragically.
Right. You love your tennis, and you think the system works well in tennis. When a challenge is made on a decision, is it not time for football to even just consider in-game reviews? Does there not need to be a proper mechanism to use in the moment? Tennis is made up of constituent parts, which are 5 sets of a men's game, or a men's Grand Slam, certainly, with 4 points in every single game, a minimum of 4 points. So you're disputing an individual point. A goal wins a game or loses a game. So a goal or a circumstance like a goal having an issue can be far more compelling than losing an individual point in one particular game out of 30 or 40 games out of hundreds of different points. That's more argument for it then.
Well, not necessarily, because ultimately the idea behind VAR is to give as much support to the referee as you possibly can. You cannot rule out error. You can only minimise it. And if we're going to compare it to tennis, then there is a different structure to the way that tennis is held together. And maybe there is some relevance to what you've just said about, given the nature of the importance of a circumstance, that there possibly can be a situation where they are far more compelling. But look, I mean, I am.
You see, you're nudging towards what I'm thinking.
I'm not
an in-game challenge, Simon. I can cancel out this ugly retrospective stuff.
Well, and then you'd have, how many in-game challenges can you have?
Well,
and then,
I don't know, a couple, 3.
And then it wouldn't be enough. The problem with football is...
No, but you lay down the law, 3 in a game.
You lay down the law for many, many things. You lay down the law for Richarlison not rolling around the pitch because he didn't have a head injury, and everyone stops the game. You lay down the law that you need 3 substitutes, now you need 5, and now you'll need 7. You'll start with 1 review, then it'll be 3, then it'll be 5, then it'll be 10, and it'll never be enough.
Before you go off on that, though, you were about to agree with me there, and I know you. An in-game challenge would knock out this ugly retrospective stuff.
I'd like to do, before we start ruminating on that, I'd like to have a risk analysis against what that looks like, how it would be administered, how it would be controlled, and what it actually involves. And then say, okay, because it would be wonderful for the broadcasters, because they could probably take advertisement breaks in the middle of a bleeding review and get some more money. But for the game itself, I want to make sure that it works for the game.
Well, it works in tennis.
And everybody gets on with it.
But tennis is a game that stops and starts between each set. They play 2 games, they go and sit down for a break. In the middle of serving, they have a 30-second break between serves.
Do you know where this is going to go? Frank Lampard could face an FA charge for questioning the integrity of the referee for his post-match comments on the decision that was made regards the Anthony Gordon penalty claim.
I think that's poor. I mean, I've had that myself. By giving an example to support my argument, right, I then got sanctioned by the FA for suggesting that a referee was poor. I wrote an article in the Observer and I quoted an example. I even remember the referee's name, Brian Curzon. I wrote a referee about him and I wrote an article about refereeing and used him as an example and got sanctioned and got a £10,000 fine for it.
Good.
And Frank didn't pay it. And right. Frank has used an example, but it's a slightly hypothetical one because he's basically saying that Mohamed Salah would get a penalty in a hypothetical scenario that it happened at the other end.
See, an in-game challenge addresses it there and then. Then it's over, then we all move on. None of this getting in touch with the PGMOL on Monday morning.
Again, well, you probably would still have the reasons to get in touch with the PGMOL. But the bottom line is do we think there's another layer of ability to be able to dispute? Because all these guys do is complain and dispute. That's all they do. Whatever it is, there is very rarely an instance where people turn around and say, look, in this instance, I can understand why the referee didn't give it, or I can understand why he did give it. 99% of the time, it will be a complaint. It will be a complaint. Yeah. And they're never making any mistakes. And the ones that make the most mistakes are the bleeding players and the managers, and they're always given a pass. And poor referees are given nothing.
Well, let me just put it out there before we go any further. Instead of Everton contacting the PGMOL, as clubs do, not just Everton, for an explanation regards a certain incident in the game, in this case, the Anthony Gordon penalty claim, is it not time for football to consider in-game reviews? And then an in-game review wouldn't bring about this ugly retrospective stuff that we get on a Monday morning. Incidentally, before we get to the break, if you want to get involved in that, please do 81089 03717 223344. I'm determined to get to this before we get to the break. Do you know something, Simon? Everton and that penalty claim. So we did a bit of research. Liverpool haven't had a penalty awarded against them for the last 46 matches, which is the longest active run in the Premier League.
Well, that tells you 2 things. They defend very high up the pitch. First of all. Second of all, they spend most of the time with the ball. And third of all, if you're going to have 18% possession like Everton are, you're very rarely going to get an opportunity to be in their penalty box. So it might have something to do with the fact that Liverpool is such a dominant side. I wonder how many penalties have been awarded against Man City. Do that stat as well.
Good point. So what about an in-game challenge? Is it time for in-game reviews? Let me know what you think of that. I'm keen to hear your view on that. 03717 223344 81089. What is the point in getting in touch on a Monday morning with the PGMOL after the decision was made at the weekend?
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.